Hello, welcome to another edition of DxTx Partners Podcast. Joining me today is our Senior Director of Growth and Development at DxTx, Joe Mitchell. Joe, welcome to the podcast. I know from the marketing standpoint, you're the one working behind the scenes, getting these together and getting these podcasts launched. So now you're on the other side of it.
That's right. I'm in the hot seat. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe, I think you have a super interesting path to DxTx and actually a really interesting career trajectory. Why don't you walk us through kind of your career path?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. I think what is most interesting was kind of how I started out in college. I grew up in southeastern Massachusetts. I live in Denver, Colorado now. But in college, I was pre-law. I come from a family of attorneys. My father's an attorney. My uncle was an attorney. My grandfather was an attorney. I thought that was the same path that I was going to be following as well. So studied English, poli-sci, history, figured I was going to go down that path, but specifically thought I was going to be joining the Army and then try my best to get into the JAG Corps, which has a very low acceptance rate, as one can imagine. So at the time I was in college, I remember I had an Army recruiter. His name was Mike, ironically or coincidentally, and I met with him pretty often. The plan was that I was going to be graduating college soon. Don't sign up yet. You'll go in as an officer, and they were going to send me down to the University of Virginia, where I would attend military law school and then kind of start my career there. What changed was I got a full-time job offer from the Boston Bruins NHL hockey club. So more specifically, Delaware North, which is if you know anything about like the Boston Bruins and the TD Garden, the ownership group is Jeremy Jacobs, who owns Delaware North. It's a multi-billion-dollar corporation in the hospitality industry. And so I talked to my dad. I really struggled with it internally. Do I go down this path of military law, or do I accept this job, with the Boston Bruins? And he gave me some pretty sage advice and said, look, you can go into the Army whenever you want, but if you turn down this job with the Boston Bruins, you'll probably regret it for the rest of your life. So joined the Boston Bruins, worked in a bunch of different roles with Delaware North, and got a lot of great opportunities to travel the country, traveled to the Edward Jones Dome, which is no longer housing the St. Louis Rams, and St. Louis, Missouri, went to Petco Park in San Diego, just a whole slew of arenas and stadiums across the country to kind of work with them, and ended up meeting my now wife. And so decided to pick up my life and move to Denver, where I became a financial analyst with the Colorado Rockies Baseball Club. So stayed on my path with pro sports and entertainment. And then I actually got headhunted about like a year and a half, 2 years in by Dr. Robert Mogum and one of his business partners, Jim Chandler at the time. They were looking for a business analyst to join the team at Colorado Pain Care and Onyx MD, which at the time was a physician locum tenens staffing firm. So joined that team at Onyx and Colorado Pain Care, and it was probably the scariest professional decision I had ever made in my life up to that point, going from sports, where I had spent nearly a decade, into healthcare, where I had zero experience, didn't really know what to expect, but was really just looking for a change, I think, because it was exciting. I really loved the company. I didn't really know much about interventional pain management, but was willing to learn. And that was about 8 years ago. So no regrets.
All right. Yeah, I think that's absolutely fascinating how paths reach interventional pain management. Talk a little bit about the different roles that you had at Colorado Pain Care, and then what ultimately led to meeting us, and then us loving Joe Mitchell and bringing you on board at DxTx.
Yeah, absolutely. So at Colorado Pain Care, I filled a variety of roles. Like I said, I entered that organization as a business analyst. I think within about a year, I'd worked my way up to assistant director of finance. About a year after that, I became the director of finance. And then, just kind of evolved from there to director of finance and business operations, helping to oversee our contact center at that organization. Eventually, that company had a little bit of a revolving door at the ops position. And so the doctors and our president and CFO at the time, Craig Dice, approached me and said, look, you've been, very stable. You've been a stalwart at the company. You know the practice inside and out. We would love it if you could really take over operations as the director of operations or practice administrator, whatever you want to call it, and enter DxTx. We were really looking for a company to help us kind of get to the next level, help us kind of scale back. We had become a little top heavy as an organization. And so, DxTx came along, and we had a few different suitors that we were looking at, a few different potential partners, and DxTx was just the clear runaway winner. Doctors loved it. I loved it. Craig, our CFO and president at the time, loved it. allowed us to maintain our local brand, maintain our local autonomy from a clinical decision-making standpoint. And there were just a lot of other synergies that we really liked about DxTx that led us to go in that direction.
Yeah, I remember our first trip out there, Owen Prunskis and Dr. John Prunskis, we were out in Colorado meeting the team, and these are really impressive doctors. And I think we went to like maybe John Elway's Steakhouse. Is that possible where we're at?
I think Shanahan's in Cherry Creek.
Shanahan's. Okay, we're at a steakhouse that was somehow tied to the Denver Broncos. But so after that dinner, I remember talking to Owen. I'm like, Owen, really impressive doctors, but I was really impressed with Joe Mitchell. I think that he's very solid. So that was a great first impression that you had on us. So fast forward a couple years, and we made you an offer to come over to DxTx. What was it about DxTx and kind of what you saw there that say, yeah, that's an attractive place that I would like to go?
A bunch of different reasons. Ultimately, it was, probably just the right fit for me from a career laddering standpoint. There was a national platform that I could join and allow me to continue growing in my role. So I wasn't necessarily stuck at, one practice kind of, just confined to that geographical catchment area. And so I think that was really exciting to me. But ultimately, I just love what DxTx does. I mean, creating patient access for folks all over the country that are suffering from chronic pain, but might not even really know what an interventional pain management specialist is. And so I loved the core values. I can really synergize with those, and just the team in general. Having worked with the team at DxTx, for close to 2 years before I finally joined the corporate level, it was just a group of individuals I could see myself fitting in with and flourishing with.
Lucky for us. From as far as what we provide at DxTx, if you are talking to a practice, a future practice, or a physician at a conference, what would you talk to them about? What makes us different?
Yeah, well, I mean, first and foremost, I alluded to the fact that DxTx allows physicians to maintain, their autonomy locally and maintain their brand. It's underappreciated, the fact that a lot of these physicians are very entrepreneurial. They start these practices and they build it up from the ground up, and they design the logo and they come up with a name. They have a lot of pride in that. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's important that whenever we partner with physicians, we're not, managing them from a corporate level just to say, okay, you're going to now be DxTx Denver Clinic. Now you're going to be DxTx Crown Point Clinic. We allow those practices to maintain their autonomy, maintain their identity. And there's a lot of value in those brands. They're brands that patients recognize locally. They're companies that the community trusts, and we leverage that. And we really are just here to provide support for the physician and take the administrative burden off of their plate to allow them to do what they do best, which is treat patients excellently. And so I think that's a little bit different than a lot of other national MSO models that are a little bit more managing from the top down. We really respect our partnerships with our physicians, and that was something I could definitely get behind.
I agree 100%. Specifically to your role at DxTx, one of the things that you're very involved with would be our business development associates, working with our practices, our marketing initiatives for practices trying to increase their new patient volume or patients trying to find a place to be treated. What trends do you see as far as being able to access each other in that space?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it is a little market specific, but I think with certain communities, they're very high dense, high touch markets. So you look at, within the DxTx network as of today, we've got Denver, Chicago, South Florida, that all tend to be a little bit more high touch markets just because of the population and because of just the market density. There's more competition. And so in those markets, I think it would behoove most practices to have either a provider liaison or business development associate, somebody who can really be boots on the ground and can really help cultivate those relationships between the physicians at your practice and, the referring providers out in the community. For others that might be less dense markets, a lot of practices can get away with other means of marketing, like more traditional means, whether that might be local marketing, newspaper ads, magazine ads. But really, I think, you asked me about the trends where things are going, and this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, but, direct to consumer marketing via digital means, Google, Facebook, other types of meta ads, YouTube. I mean, those are all incredibly powerful tools that we can kind of pull as levers nowadays to help ramp up new patients in any community. But it's really a mix. We use a term a little bit called flooding the market. And really what we mean by that is pulling all those different levers to try to really increase not necessarily just new patients, but patient access. And what I really mean by patient access isn't just volumes and getting more patients in the door. It's really a combination of volumes, but it's education in the community to let them know what it is exactly that we do and what role we serve within their community to bring a positive influence, whether that's through, really through our treatment, through our interventional treatments.
One of the things I know that you touch a lot at DxTx, and you touched on a little bit about how there's regional differences, which I couldn't agree more. We have affiliates in Omaha or Des Moines or Chicago to Denver to South Florida to Detroit, Indiana. We have a pretty good sized footprint, and I think there is a different approach. I love how you individualize that based on the market. Are there any technologies or advancing technologies that you're using in your department and with your teams to help make things easier for our affiliates?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably too many to mention, but I can probably give a few a shout out. At DxTx, we're very tech enabled and data driven, and that's not something that I say lightly. I think a lot of companies claim to be tech enabled and data driven, and really, I think one of the differentiators of DxTx is that is absolutely true for us. So one of the things that we do, and Owen Prunskis, our managing partner, is big on this, is testing things small and locally before we kind of work out the kinks and scale it to our national platform. And, he calls that nail it and scale it. And so, I think for us, some of the things that we've successfully tested recently would be Assort AI, which is AI contact center agent that can help field very, very basic requests like, please schedule my appointment, please cancel my appointment, please reschedule my appointment. That really allows our contact center representatives to focus on things like patient reactivation, new patient referral conversions, and really be more impactful from a patient access standpoint in that way. Perhaps one of the best tools that we've come across is Phreesia Connect. And Phreesia Connect is something that we tested locally in Denver, which is just allows us to take all these fragmented referral channels and put them into one centralized repository for the practice or our contact center agents or whoever's really managing your referrals to be able to work out of one centralized list, which allows you to also just get a feel for how you're doing and identify any leakage in your funnel. And that's been hugely impactful for us. Very
neat. Very neat. As far as outside of work, I know that Joe Mitchell has a young family and has a lot of responsibility and very, very busy. How do you decompress? How do you kind of shut it down and refill your cup so that you can come back with the energy that you have?
Yeah, I mean, right now you hit the nail on the head. I have a young family. I've got a beautiful wife. I've got a 2.5-year-old son and a little girl that just turned 1. So, it's really just spending as much time as possible with them. We're very blessed to live in Colorado, and where it's beautiful weather, and we've obviously got incredible outdoor activities to choose from hiking, camping, just walks around the neighborhood, and we have 2 dogs that are very, very active as well, and so. Honestly, it's just getting out and exercising and being with the family and the dogs. So that's what my life looks like nowadays. A couple of years ago, it might have looked like a little bit more golf, a little bit more maybe recreational sports, but these days it's family time.
Rumor has it that you and your wife are pickleball stars. Is there any truth to
that? Maybe her. I wouldn't exactly call us pickleball stars, but I would say that we're learning, and it's a humbling experience when you get beat consistently by your wife. She's great at it. And yeah, we're learning. It is fun.
Yeah, it is fun. I have a daughter who played college tennis, so she already has all that. So I've tried to play with her a few times, and she literally toys with me until she.
You got no shot.
So I have zero shot. Yeah. How about what's your favorite book? Most recent favorite book?
Ooh, my favorite book. I mean, that's a really tough answer. I've got probably nonfiction answers and fiction answers. I would say, fiction answers. I'm a really big fan of American modernism. So Ernest Hemingway, William Faulkner, that kind of genre. From a nonfiction standpoint, I love the book Traction. It's a book, one of 2 that we really embrace a lot here at DxTx, but actually preceded my time at DxTx and was first introduced to me by A great mentor, Craig Dice, who I mentioned was president and CFO of Colorado Pain Care for several years before DxTx kind of entered the fold. And we implemented really all the teachings from the book Traction at Colorado Pain Care, which is in large part level 10 meetings, the entrepreneurial operating system. I love that book because I've been in or a part of a lot of meetings where I come out of it and I think to myself, man, that really wasn't all that productive. I just kind of wasted my time. And that really was kind of an aha moment for me and others at Colorado Pain Care. And I know at DxTx too, where we said, okay, there's a structure to this that we can follow that can make all of our time much more productive and meaningful. And it's been a huge professional game changer for me, definitely.
Very, very cool. Final question, and very important one, is next time I come to Denver, which is, I think going to be early December, where is a restaurant that I haven't been to yet? Because we all know that I do like a nice restaurant. Where Joe Mitchell and I going to eat next time I come to Denver?
Man, I feel like Denver has a bad rep on the restaurant scene, but there are so many amazing restaurants here. Do you like sushi?
I do.
Okay, there's a sushi place, and I say this coming from the East Coast, and we have great seafood there. But there's a seafood place called Izakaya Den on Pearl Street. And I have a funny story about this. My wife back in 2018 ran the Boston Marathon. She qualified for it, ran it. As you can tell, she's a much better athlete than I am. So we went out for like a congratulatory dinner, but really it was a sushi making class. And it was at this place, Izakaya Den. The owner was the instructor, and it was a group-led instruction. And as we were making it, he let us know that his brother had caught the fish that we were working with the day before in Japan. And
wow.
So they fly in their seafood regularly from Japan. And obviously the fisherman is the owner's brother. So that was pretty incredible. But it is the best sushi I've ever had in my life. And that is where I would like to take you, Mike.
All right. That is a deal, and I'm going to hold you to that. Joe, this is great. I'm glad that our team and all the people at DxTx and that follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube will get a chance to learn more about Joe Mitchell. Thanks for the time.
All right. Appreciate it, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you.